Speak. Prosody rate equals 90%. Lucrezia Borgia. Reign a powerful or ruthless murder? His life, among luxurious orgies and mortal poisons, remains a mystery. Discover the truth after the scandal that marked the Italian rebirth. Subscribe and activate the bell so as not to miss anything. Well, let's start with Lucrezia Borgia. Can you imagine? The daughter of a pope, wrapped in a tangle of intrigues, poison and scandals, his name synonymous with evil and perversion, but how much of that is it true? The story has painted it as a ruthless villain, a serial killer with an insatiable thirst for power, but was it really like that, or the black legend has eclipsed it? For centuries, he has been attributed to the death of countless enemies of his family through the use of sophisticated poisons. There is talk of poisoned glasses, deleted lovers, of political rivals, an authentic network of palatial intrigues. But is there real evidence that supports these accusations, or are they only rumors fed by morbidity and envy towards its power and beauty? The truth is that separating the reality from fiction in your case is complicated. Many of the stories about Lucrezia come from enemy sources, from those who hated her or who sought to discredit her. Propaganda, political rivalry, and simple morbidity have contributed to the construction of an exaggerated image and possibly very far from reality. What part of the legend is true and what part is pure invention? Think of the Italian Renaissance, a period of incredible artistic and cultural flourishing, but also a brutally competitive world, where noble families fought for power, weaving alliances and betrayals with the same ease that a craftsman weaves silk. The Church, with its immense influence, was a key player in this power game, and the papacy, a coveted position, often played with blood and violence. Rome, the center of Catholicism, was a hotbed of intrigues. The potatoes, with their temporal and spiritual power, controlled vast fortunes and territories. Their families, such as that of the Borgia, enriched and consolidated their influence, often through questionable methods. The poison, the strategic marriage alliances, and political manipulation were common tools in their arsenal. In this context of unbridled power and excessive ambition, Lucrezia Borgia was born, daughter of a pope. His life was intrinsically linked to the politics and intrigues of the papal court. Imagine the weight of such inheritance, the pressure of maintaining family prestige, and the need to survive in a world where betrayal was current currency. Her beauty and cunning turned her into a key piece in her father's power game. Remember the political panorama of the time. A world of intrigues and excessive ambitions. Rodrigo Borgia, a man of enormous charisma and political cunning, made his way between the high spheres of the church. His family, the powerful Borgia family, already had a great influence, but Rodrigo longed for absolute power. His ascent was not clean, much less. There were bribes, strategic alliances, and, of course, powerful enemies that tried to stop him. The road to the papacy was long and tortuous. Rodrigo Borgia, with his charm and his ability to weave influence networks, managed to gain the support of key cardinals. He used his wealth and influence to buy votes, a common practice, although morally questionable at that time. Imagine the pressure, secret negotiations, promises, and blackmail. A true battle for power in the shadows of the Catholic Church. Finally, in 1492, Rodrigo Borgia reached the top. That he was chosen pope, taking the name of Alejandro VI. The scandal was inevitable. Many questioned the legitimacy of their choice, accusing him of corruption and simonia. But Alejandro VI was already on the throne of San Pedro, ready to govern, with his family by his side, ready to take advantage of the power he had achieved. His reign would be marked by the controversy and the undeniable influence of the Borgia. And so, you see how Rodrigo Borgia, with his overflowing ambition, was not alone. That he had his family, the Borgia, a machinery. Its origin, although noble, was not the highest Alcurnia, but Rodrigo, with his intelligence and his implacable thirst for ascent, knew how to weave strategic alliances, marrying his children with influential families in Italy. Think about the connection network that was building, piece by piece, as a patient architect. Look at how each marriage of their children was a master play, a movement on a political board where the chips were people, and the objective, the absolute power. Cesare, the most ambitious son, would become a skilled military, while Lucrezia, his sister, would be used as a key piece in political alliances, moving from one marriage to another to ensure the influence of the family. You will understand that the Borgia family did not play with conventional rules. /prosody, /speak. Speak, prosody rate equals 90%. Imagine the relentless escalation of the Borgia. From a noble but not dominant family, they became a force to take into account in Italy. Each step, each alliance, each marriage, every carefully designed strategy, contributed to its ascent. It was a vertiginous climb, a meteoric ascent fed by ambition and political cunning. You are witnessing how the family was forging their own destiny, a fate dyed of power and, as we will see, also of scandals. But you will wonder, how was Lucrezia's childhood? It grew in the very heart of papal power, surrounded by luxury and intrigues. Imagine imposing palaces, lush gardens, the constant murmur of secrets and conspiracies. His education, although refined, was not limited to arts and letters. From an early age, he learned the art of diplomacy, manipulation, and the crucial importance of public image in the papal court. Life in the Vatican was his school, a hard and ruthless school. You will see how he learned to move with grace in that complex world, that he dominated languages, played instruments, and cultivated an image of refinement and beauty that would make it a key piece on the game board of her family. But behind that facade, a cunning and observer mind was forged, capable of deciphering the complexities of power. His childhood was not an idyllic childhood, but a rigorous training in politics and survival. The Vatican, with his intrigues and his alliances, was his training field. It was not a conventional education, but a total immersion in the world of politics and strategy. From a young age, he observed negotiations, alliances, betrayals, learning to read between the lines and understand the hidden motivations of each character. That early experience marked her deeply, shaping her personality and her way of acting in the future. The papal court became its university, where it learned much tougher lessons than those taught at any academy. But Lucrezia's life was not just luxury. At an early age, his father, the ambitious Rodrigo Borgia, used it as a key piece in his power games. Do you imagine you, with just 12 years, being promised in marriage to a much older man, a powerful duke? Thus began his first marriage, a political union with Giovanni Sforza, Lord of Regret, a link that sealed alliances and ensured the rise of the Borgia family. Giovanni, a rough and ambitious man, sought to consolidate his position through this marriage. For him, Lucrezia was a tool, a means to obtain more power. Think about the pressure that this should have represented for such a young girl, forced to marry for convenience, without love, surrounded by the cold policy of the Renaissance. The marriage, held with great pomp and splendor, was actually a contract, a political transaction that had little to do with love or happiness. Imagine the sumptuous parties, silk dresses, the gleaming gold. But behind all that brightness, a much darker and more complex reality was hidden. The young Lucrezia became a fundamental piece of her family's ambitious plans, a pawn in a deadly power game. Well, at 12, your destiny was already written. Marrying with Giovanni Sforza, a powerful man who consolidated your father's influence on the Italian political landscape. Imagine the weight of that invisible crown, the pressure of an alliance that had nothing to do with love, but with power strategies. Can you imagine the opulence of the wedding, the deployment of wealth, but also the loneliness of a girl forced to play such an important role in an adult game? That marriage, although annulled later, served as a springboard. They made you a key piece in the political negotiations of the time, a tool to ensure alliances and expand the power of your family. Each union, each wedding was a treaty, a contract sealed with a ring, but a ring that tied you to a destination you had not chosen. Then came the marriage to Duke Alfonso de Aragon, an handsome but also dangerous man, a strategic union to strengthen the link with the Kingdom of Naples. Can you imagine the intrigue in the court, the furtive looks, the conversations in whispers? Each encounter, each conversation, loaded with political significance, of alliances and betrayals. And finally, your union with Alfonso d'Este, a marriage that, although it seemed a safe commitment to consolidate the power of the Borgia, became a more complex chapter of your life. Think about it. Was it a victory or one more defeat in this chess game where you were a key piece, moved at will for your family's ambitions? /prosody, /speak. Speak, prosody rate equals 90%. But that arranged marriage was really a happy union? Not at all. Your father-in-law, the powerful Pope Alejandro VI, had other plans for you, plans that involved more strategic alliances. Giovanni Sforza, although powerful, was no longer so useful. It is rumored that he himself was unfaithful, and that, in the papal court, was an unforgivable sin. The scandal began to gesture, a discomfort that would soon become a political earthquake. The papal machinery launched. It was alleged that your marriage to Sforza had never been consummated, a serious accusation that fought you from the union. Imagine the pressure, the weight of political, religious and family machinery working against your first husband. Remember that your father, the Pope, was a master of manipulation. He needed to get rid of Sforza to consolidate his power and ensure your future, a future that he himself was going to control. The divorce, or rather, the cancellation of marriage, was a scandal that resonated throughout Italy. Sforza, furious and humiliated, tried to resist, but the Pope's power was too great. The cancellation not only freed you from an unwanted marriage, but also opened the doors to new political alliances that your father would use to further strengthen his position. Your destiny, once again, was in the hands of politics and power. So, forget Sforza for a moment. Your father, the Pope, had prepared a new alliance, a much more powerful. It was Duke Alfonso de Aragon, a man with a reputation. Interesting. It was a strategic party, a way to ensure the power of the Borgia family even more, right? A marriage arranged like the previous one, but with much more significant geopolitical implications. Alfonso was heir to the Kingdom of Naples, a key territory in Renaissance Italy. Cassar with him meant joining two powers, consolidating your family's dominance and, of course, obtaining immense wealth. But what did it mean to you? Was it a union based on love or simply a political transaction more in the complex plot of power? Imagine the pressure, the suffocating opulence of the Vatican and the court of Aragon. Your new husband, with his power and ambitions, was a man surrounded by secrets. They talked about their impetuous temperament, of their lovers, of their excessive ambition. A marriage of convenience that hid a much more complex and dangerous reality than anyone could imagine. Did you feel safe by his side, or did you perceive a latent danger in each of his gestures? Well, your new husband, Alfonso, didn't last long. He died mysteriously. Some say of a sudden disease, others whisper poison. Imagine the scene. A powerful duke, fallen out of favor, and you, his young wife, in the middle of the storm. Simple coincidence? Many doubted, and suspicions, like snakes, began to slide around your name. Theories about his death are as exciting as murky. Some point to a family plot, perhaps orchestrated by your own father, Pope Alejandro VI, to ensure his own political interests. Others, more daring, point you directly to you, insinuating that ambition or revenge led you to participate in their murder. Think about it. A marriage of convenience, a powerful husband but with enemies, and you, an intelligent and ambitious woman, with a father capable of anything for power. Was it a conspiracy? A disease? An accident? The story, as always, offers several versions, and the truth, such as poison, is diluted over time. And so, after the storm, calm came, or so it seemed. Your third marriage with Alfonso d'Este, Duke of Ferrara, was a radical change. Forget the rumors of poison and the scandals of the papal court. Ferrara was different. It was power, it was stability, it was legitimacy. You married a powerful man, a respected. Suddenly, you were more than an illegitimate daughter of Pope Alexander VI. You were the Duchess of Ferrara. Ferrara offered you something that Rome could never, a sense of belonging. Here, you were not just one piece in your father's power game. Here, you were the Duchess, the Duke's wife, a key figure in the Ferrara court. The palatial intrigue was still present, of course, but it was different. It was more sophisticated. And you, my dear Lucrezia, learned to navigate it with a mastery. This marriage consolidated your position. You left behind the shadow of the Roman scandals and you forced a new identity. You became a patron of the arts, a respected and admired figure in court. Your marriage to Alfonso was not only a strategic political union, but also became a symbol of your own transformation, of your ascent to a position of power and stability that few could imagine in your beginnings. Prosody, speak. Speak, prosody rate equals 90%. But what is behind the image that the story has bequeathed? You know that the figure of Lucrezia Borgia has been wrapped in a layer of mystery, fed by rumors and legends. It has been painted as a lethal seductive, a ruthless murderer, a monster capable of any atrocity. But was it really like that? Or was he a victim of a defamation campaign orchestrated by his enemies, powerful and envious, who took advantage of the political instability of the time to destroy his reputation? Think about it. She was the daughter of Pope Alexander VI, a powerful but also controversial man. His life was marked by palatial intrigues, political alliances, and family rivalries. Each of its marriages was a strategic movement, a piece on the power board. Was she really the intellectual author of the crimes attributed to her, or was it used as a pawn in a much larger game? The answer, as you will see, is much more complex than it seems. Many modern historians argue that Lucrezia's negative image is a later construction, a black legend forged by her enemies to discredit it. Remember that at the time, she was considered an elegant, cultured, and with great political influence. Accusations of poisoning, although persistent, lack conclusive evidence. On the other hand, what is evident is the manipulation and use of its image for political purposes. So victim or manipulative? You must decide yourself. The story of Lucrezia Borgia is a complex tapestry of facts, rumors, and propaganda, where the line between reality and fiction becomes diffuse. What is clear is that his life, his image, and his legacy continue to fascinate us centuries later, challenging simplistic interpretations and forcing us to question the dominant historical narratives. But to what extent were those rumors of poisoning? In the Renaissance, toxicology was an incipient science, and the knowledge of poisons was limited. You imagine the information was transmitted orally, through alchemists and doctors, with secret formulas and little scientific precision. Many deaths attributed to Lucrezia's poison could have been the result of other causes, diseases, or simply bad luck. Think about error possibilities. The symptoms of some diseases, such as typhoid fever or plague, looked a lot like those of poisoning. Without modern analysis tools, it was easy to confuse one thing with the other. In addition, superstition and belief in black magic played an important role in the interpretation of mysterious deaths. You could easily believe in a mortal plot if you did not have scientific evidence. Accusations against Lucrezia, therefore, must be analyzed with caution. Although there were poisons such as subject or arsenic, its effective use required deep and precise knowledge that was not always available. Detecting poison was even more difficult. The evidence was rudimentary and subject to errors. You could imagine how easy it was to manipulate evidence in a context where science was so little developed. But were those terrible accusations foundation? Many historians doubt the scale of the crimes attributed to Lucrezia. Remember that the chronicles of the time were full of exaggerations and political propaganda. The rival families, like the Medici, did not hesitate to use rumors and slander to discredit their enemies. For you, unraveling the truth becomes a fascinating challenge. Historical evidence on poisoning is, at best, circumstantial. There is talk of suspicious deaths, yes, but the irrefutable proof is missing. The methods of analysis of the time were rudimentary, and the confusion between disease and poisoning was common. Think about it, many diseases had symptoms similar to those of poisoning. In addition, many of the accusations come from enemy sources, motivated by political hatred or family rivalry. Remember that the papal court was a hotbed of intrigues and conspiracies, where slander was a weapon as effective as any dagger. For you, separating reality from fiction becomes a true historical enigma. But the accusations of veneno were not the only ones that persecuted Lucrezia. The chronicles of the time, often exaggerated, also speak of an unbridled social life in the Borgia court. Stories of lavish parties, night dances, and orgies are woven. How much is there really in these rumors? It is difficult to know with certainty, because many of the sources are biased and written by enemies of the Borgia family. Remember that the information that reaches us is filtered by the prism of time and the different political agendas. Prosody, speak, prosody rate equals 90%. Analyzing the chronicles, we can find descriptions of opulent banquets, with music, dance, and an unprecedented luxury deployment. These parties were an integral part of the Borgia's power, a way of showing their wealth and consolidating political alliances. However, the line between the sumptuous celebration and the orgy, according to the moral standards of the time, is blurred in the chronicles. What for some was a splendid party, for others it was a show of debauchery. It is important to remember that the very idea of orgy is loaded with modern connotations. In the Renaissance, morality was different, and what we consider today scandalous, so it could simply be part of the elite's social life. The chronicles, written by clergy or noble rivals, often distort reality to denigrate the Borgia, magnifying the most controversial aspects of their social life. What do you think? To what extent are these stories reliable? But expect, Lucrezia's story is more complex than it seems. While the rumors of poison and orgies flew, she cultivated one less known side: her patronage of the arts. Imagine the Borgia palaces full of artists, musicians and writers, all under the protection of this controversial woman. She not only enjoyed art, but actively promoted, financing projects and attracting talent from all over Italy. Think of the painters who depended on their generosity to be able to create their masterpieces. Lucrezia, despite his reputation, brought together the best talents of the time, turning his palaces into true cultural centers. It was not only a patron, but a key figure in the artistic flowering of the Italian rebirth. His influence extended beyond the borders of Rome, attracting international renowned artists. This side of Lucrezia, the one of the protector of the arts, is often eclipsed by the scandals that surrounded her. But his artistic legacy is undeniable. Many works of art of the Italian Renaissance carry, in some way, their footprint. Can you imagine the number of artists who could develop their talent thanks to their sponsorship? His cultural influence was significant, creating an environment conducive to the artistic development of a golden age. Think of the artists who flourished under the sponsorship of the Borgia. You, as a witness of the time, could have seen Miguel Angel, young and ambitious, looking for the perfect commission. The Borgia, with their wealth and power, opened the doors to artistic innovation, financing masterpieces that we admire today. Remember that its influence was not limited to Rome. It spread throughout Italy, leaving an indelible mark on the Renaissance. Imagine the impressive art collections they gathered. You could have walked through their palaces, admiring the bronze sculptures, the paintings of Renaissance teachers and the tapestry exquisitely tissues. This patronage was not just an act of ostentation. It was an investment in the future, a way to perpetuate its legacy and leave an indelible brand in art history. The Borgia not only collected art, they also commissioned specific works, promoting the creation of unique and original pieces. You could have witnessed the birth of new artistic techniques, experimentation with perspectives, and the exploration of innovative themes. Its influence extended to architecture, music, and literature, transforming the cultural landscape of Renaissance Italy. Imagine life in the Borgia court. You, an unexpected guest. Luxury overwhelms you. Silk tapestries, tables full of exotic delicacies, the brightness of silver and gold. But among opulence, you perceive a palpable tension, an atmosphere full of secrets. The laughs are strong, but hollow, and the whispered conversations hide intrigues that could change the course of the story. Power is breathed in every corner, an absolute and ruthless power. Cruelty, however, is a constant shadow. A slide, a bad word, bliss, a challenging look, can be enough to attract the anger of the Pope or Lucrezia. The stories of poisoning, murders and betrayals are counted in whispers, although everyone knows them. You see the mask of elegance, but you feel the weight of latent violence, always on the prowl. Life in court is a dangerous game, where the prize is fortune and punishment, death. But everyday life is not limited to intrigues and murders. Think of dances, parties, endless banquets. Music, dance, poetry, moments of apparent joy that brutally contrast with the darkness that surrounds them. You are witnessing this duality, of this strange balance between overflowing luxury and silent terror. It is a fascinating and scary world at the same time, a world where beauty and brutality are intertwined in a mortal dance. Prosody / speak. Speak, prosody rate equals 90%, but between brightness and ostentation, something darker moved. You, silent observer, begin to notice the subtle but powerful influence of Lucrezia. Not only was it a decorative figure, it was a key piece on his father's political board, Pope Alejandro VI. His opinions, his suggestions, his same silences, had a considerable weight in the decisions that affected whole kingdoms. Look at how, with a well-placed word, it managed to influence marriage alliances, the designation of important positions, even in the most delicate diplomatic negotiations. His intelligence was acute. His cunning, legendary. It wasn't just beauty. It was power disguised as grace. Remember that at the time of the Renaissance, the women of the nobility had a limited role in politics. But Lucrezia challenged those conventions. She became a confidant, counselor, and sometimes, in the hand that moved the threads in the shadow. His father, a cunning and ambitious man, recognized and took advantage of his political talent. But its influence was not limited to the palace halls. You will see how Lucrezia, despite his youth, became a key piece in the intricate political negotiations that defined the fate of Italy. Her beauty, her intelligence, and her father's position made her a powerful weapon, a tool to weave alliances and ensure peace or war, as she suited her family's interests. Look at how your presence was used to soften the roughness among the powerful. Strategic marriages, diplomatic gifts, everything was part of its arsenal. You will realize how every marriage of Lucretia, far from being a mere issue of romantic love, became a movement on the chessboard of Italian politics. A pawn, a queen, or even a mate check, depending on the perspective. Look at how your image was used to consolidate alliances and ensure the power of the Borgia family. Think about the consequences of each decision, the weight that fell on their shoulders, so young and surrounded by intrigues. You will witness how the public image of Lucretia, carefully constructed and manipulated, served as a shield and sword at the same time, that an image that concealed the complexities of its role in the wars that torn Italy, a much more active role than many believe. You will see how his marriage to Giovanni Sforza, a powerful lord of the time, was a key piece in his father's political strategy, Pope Alejandro VI, although marriage was not happy. I will show you how Lucretia knew how to move cunningly in that complex world, using its position to influence the political decisions of the time. Imagine the palatial intrigues, the secret negotiations, and the power she exercised, even through a forced union. His subsequent marriage to the King of Navarra was another step in his rise to power. Look at how this union connected it with the highest spheres of European politics, making it a key figure in international alliances and conflicts. Think of diplomatic letters, secret encounters, and the influence it exerted since his new queen position. But their relationships transcended the marriage field. You will discover how he cultivated friends and alliances with influential figures such as Cesare Borgia, his brother, a man as ambitious as her. Note how the closeness between brothers became a strategic tool, a mutual support in the complicated game of power. Imagine private conversations, shared advice, and collaboration in their ambitious plans. But how has Lucretia been seen over time? His image, molded by history and legend, has been subject to fascination and controversy. In the literature, sometimes it is presented as a lethal seductive, a dark figure wrapped in intrigues and poisons. Other times, try to show a more nuanced perspective, recognizing the influence of his environment and the complexity of his character. Remember that the story we know is filtered by the stories of the time, many of them written by their enemies. In art, his portrait has been interpreted in very different ways, from representations that show her as a beautiful and refined woman, to others who paint her with a mysterious and enigmatic air. Note how artists have reflected, through their brushstrokes, the different facets of their personality, reflecting the ambiguity that surrounds it. The influence of the time, with its moral and aesthetic codes, is key to understanding these representations. Think of the literary and pictorial works that have immortalized it. How do you imagine Lucretia Borgia based on these representations? Do you think a victim of circumstances, a ruthless villain, or something more complex? Remember that the image we have of it is the result of centuries of interpretations, often biased by prejudices and legends. It is essential to analyze these representations with a critical spirit. Prosody. Speak. Speak. The prosody rate equals 90%, but the image of Lucretia did not stay alone in the written chronicles. Art, especially painting, played a crucial role in perpetuating its legend, often contradictory. Think of the portraits that present it as a seductive beauty, with a mysterious air that invites intrigue. Was that the true Lucretia, or an artistic construction that responded to the tastes and prejudices of the time? Many artists represented her thus, accentuating her beauty and mystery, contributing to the creation of a myth. But there are also representations that show it more dark, reflecting the image of a fatal and dangerous woman that history has attributed. Look how Lucretia's perception changes according to the work of art that represents it. What does each painting tell you about your personality? Remember that Renaissance art not only sought realistic representation, but also transmitted ideological and social messages. The image of Lucretia, molded by the artists of the time, reflected the ideals and concerns of a complex society, full of contradictions. Thus, art not only immortalized Lucretia, but also contributed to building a legend that persists to this day. You think the image we have of it is closer to reality or fiction? But what about Lucretia today? You know her, right? Not only as a historical figure, but as a fascinating character who has transcended the centuries. He has inspired novels, operas, movies, Even video games, its history, full of mystery and controversy, continues to captivate the imagination of artists and spectators. Think of the innumerable fiction works that have used their name and legend. From Victor Hugo to Alexander Dumas, many authors have made it the protagonist of their stories, sometimes like a ruthless villain, others as a victim of circumstances. Each interpretation reflects a particular vision of their time and women in history. And not only in literature, in classical music, his figure has inspired operas and songs, exploring the complexity of his personality and relationships. His life lends itself to tragedy, drama, intrigue, elements that have attracted composers and librettists over the centuries. What do you think? Do you imagine an opera about your life? In cinema and television, we have seen her played by great actresses, each contributing her own vision of the character. From more historical representations to more free and dramatic, Lucrezia Borgia remains a fascinating character for screens. His image, sometimes cruel, sometimes seductive, always enigmatic, continues to inspire new adaptations. But what is behind that image? How did Lucrezia become the archetype of the fatal woman? You know that history, many times, is written from the perspective of power, and in the case of Lucrezia, that power was constantly questioned. He painted it as a dangerous seductive, an expert manipulator, capable of using his beauty and charm to achieve his goals, even if that involved playing with the life and death of others. That image, that of the lethal woman who uses her appeal to poison, both physically and metaphorically, to her enemies, has remained through the centuries. Think of the works of art, the Gothic novels, the Hollywood films. All of them have resumed, to a greater or lesser extent, that vision of Lucrezia. But is that the complete truth? Or is it simply the reflection of a patriarchal society that feared its power? The figure of Lucrezia lends itself to the interpretation, and it is precisely that ambiguity that has made it a myth. Its history is a battlefield between reality and fiction, where the legend has eclipsed, on many occasions, the truth. You wonder, who really Lucrezia? A ruthless villain, a victim of circumstances, or something more complex? But you will ask yourself, what did Lucrezia have that made her a Renaissance beauty icon? Forget for a moment the rumors and scandals. Think about the idealization of the female body of the time. Pale skin, almost translucent, was a symbol of nobility and status. Lucrezia, according to the portraits that survived, possessed that paleness, enhanced by the blush of his cheeks and the brightness of his dark eyes. That was the beauty that was sought, the beauty that represented purity and elegance. The hair, long and dark, collected with grace, was another fundamental element. Look at how in the paintings, Lucrezia's hair, often adorned with jewels and ribbons, frames his face, emphasizing the delicate oval of his face. Remember that long hair and care was synonymous with fertility and health, highly valued qualities in the woman of the time. Its beauty was not only physical, but also a reflection of the ideal of the time. Prosody, or speak. Speak to prosody rate equals 90%, and we cannot forget the makeup. Although subtle, makeup enhanced its features, a light blush on the cheeks, a touch of color on the lips, all with the intention of creating an image of delicacy and refinement. Remember that the makeup of the time was based on natural ingredients, and its application was an art in itself. It was a way of perfecting natural beauty, not to hide it. But what do we really know about Lucrezia's private life? His letters, if they ever existed, have been lost in time. The chronicles, full of poison and rumors, offer us only pieces, shadows of a woman wrapped in mystery. Imagine, for a moment, the conversations whispered in the halls of the palace, the furtive looks, the secrets kept. Was Lucrezia a victim of courtier intrigues or a teacher of the political game? The answer, my friend, is lost in the mist of the centuries. Some historians paint her as an intelligent and cultured woman, passionate about art and literature, trapped in a network of power that overcome her. Others describe it as a ruthless, ambitious figure, capable of anything to maintain its position. You decide which image is more convincing to you. The truth is probably at some intermediate point, in a complexity that escapes our modern understanding. His personal relationships, his loves, his friends, all wrapped in a layer of mystery. Were your marriages political arrangements or a reflection of your true feelings? Did you have lovers? Was he ever happy? These questions, and many others, are still unanswered. Lucrezia Borgia's enigma persists, inviting us to continue investigating, to form our own conclusions, based on the few evidences that have survived the passage of time. But Lucrezia's image as a ruthless murderer, is it complete? There is an aspect of his life that is often overlooked. His role as a mother. He had several children, some legitimate, others less. What was Lucrezia with his little ones? The chronicles offer us few intimate details, but we can imagine the luxury and opulence that surrounded their children, raised in the heart of papal power. Think about the weight of your position. She herself was a princess girl, educated in the papal court, familiar with power and intrigue from an early age. How did this affect your motherhood? Was it an affectionate mother, or the political pressure and the need to ensure the future of her children forced her to make difficult decisions that seem cruel to us today? History, as always, offers fragments, not definitive answers. Lucrezia's image as a mother is a mystery, an incomplete puzzle. His children, the result of passionate political alliances and loves, had such complex destinations as that of their own mother. Were they loved, protected, or simply pieces in your family's power game? But how did Lucrezia die? At 30, his life suddenly went out, leaving behind endless questions. The official version points to a fever, a disease that consumed it in a few days. You will wonder, as simple as that? No, my friend, Lucrezia's story is never so simple. Speculations, as expected, abound. Some say it was poisoned, an irony considering its reputation. Others speak of a bad abortion, a complication that ended his life. Imagine, the palatial intrigues, the secrets whispered in the shadows. Who dared to end Lucrezia's life? The truth, as is usually the case in these cases, was lost in the tangle of rumors and conspiracies. Maybe we never know with certainty what happened to him. But what we do know is that his death marked the end of an era, the end of a life full of power, passion, and a lot of mystery. His legacy is still alive, feeding our fascination and our debate. But what do you think of Lucrezia? Ruthless monster or victim of a cruel era? Its history is full of contradictions. While some paint her as an poisoning murderer, others see her as an intelligent and powerful woman, manipulated by the men who surrounded her. It was a key figure in the Italian Renaissance policy, an era of palatial intrigues and power struggles. His influence, although wrapped in shadows, was undeniable. Her beauty and cunning made her a pawn in her family's power game. Borgia, married several times for political convenience, she was forced to navigate a world dominated by ambitious and unscrupulous men. She was a teacher of the art of diplomacy, capable of weaving alliances and undo enemies with equal ease. But to what extent was she the architect of her actions, or simply a piece on a foreign board? Prosody. Speak. The prosody rate equals 90%. Lucrezia Borgia's legacy remains the subject of debate. His name has been associated with poison, scandal, and cruelty, but also with intelligence, beauty, and political ability. How can we judge it with the eyes of the 21st century, considering the historical context in which he lived? The truth is that its history, full of lights and shadows, invites us to reflect on the role of women in the power and complexity of human nature. But what is behind those accusations, friend? The truth about Lucrezia is still an enigma. Many historians have painted her as a villain, a ruthless murderer, manipulated by her father, Pope Alexander VI. But what if the story has told us only a part of the truth? And if, in reality, he was a victim of the political intrigues of the time, an intelligent and even visionary woman trapped in a brutal power game? Think about it. She was educated in a papal court, surrounded by intrigues and conspiracies. His marriage to powerful nobles was part of a political game, not a personal choice. Its alleged crimes, poisoning, and murders often lack solid evidence. Many of the testimonies against him come from political enemies, seeking to discredit and harm his family. The lack of overwhelming evidence and the very nature of the accusations, often based on rumors and gossip, leave us with more questions than answers. Was it a cruel woman? How do some paint her? Or a piece on a much larger political chessboard, which acted as could survive in a ruthless world? The answer, friend, maybe we never know with certainty. What we do know is that its history is a reflection of the complexity of the time. But how do we rebuild Lucrezia's life? It's hard, right? Historical sources are contradictory, often biased by the propaganda of their enemies. Many documents were written long after his death, fed by rumors and black legends. You have to analyze each data with tweezers, comparing different versions and looking for the truth among the lies. Imagine letters, chronicles, witnesses' stories. All that must be studied, compare it, verify its authenticity. Who wrote what? Because, what are your interests? It is a historical detective work, a puzzle where each piece is a track, and many times a false track. Thus, little by little, a more complete image is being built, although never definitive. The Lucrezia Borgia we know today is a mixture of reality and legend, a figure shaped by the history and interpretation of historians over the centuries. And you, what do you think? Do you think it is possible to get to know the truth about your life? Look, you realize how complicated it is, right? We have letters, chronicles, poems, even rumors. Some writings paint her like a saint, others like a monster. It depends on who wrote and what tried to achieve. The potatoes, for example, did not see her with good eyes, don't you think? Think of the chroniclers of the time. Many were courtiers, looking for the favor of their patrons. If they wrote something bad from Lucrezia, but favored their patron, what do you think they published? The objective truth is lost between the lines, between adulation and slander. Analyzing these sources requires a critical eye, do you understand? Therefore, separating the legend from reality is a challenge. Many stories about their alleged poisonings are exaggerations, or even inventions of their political enemies. But what is true? That is the question that we must ask us constantly. We need to analyze each source individually, considering its context and possible biases. So how do you judge it, centuries later? The image we have of Lucrezia is a broken mosaic, difficult to rebuild. The chronicles, many written by their enemies, present it as a ruthless, poisonous woman, capable of anything by power. But is that complete truth? Remember that historical stories are dyed for the perspectives of those who write them. Some modern historians try to rehabilitate their figure, arguing that many accusations are exaggerated or completely false, product of a defamation campaign orchestrated by their political rivals. They point out their intelligence, their negotiation capacity, their role as ruler and their influence on the papal court. It's a complex debate, don't you think? The truth, as usually happens, is probably at some intermediate point. Lucrezia was a powerful woman in a brutal era, where politics and intrigue were current currency. His actions, seen with today's perspective, may seem reprehensible, but we must understand the historical context to judge it with justice. What do you think? /prosody /speak. Speak. Prosody rate equals 90%. Think of other women of the Renaissance. Catalina de' Medici, Isabel I of England. What do they have in common with Lucrezia? Power, no doubt. But while Catalina weaves political intrigues from the shadow, Isabel governs with iron fist. Lucrezia is involved in a whirlwind of accusations, many exaggerated, others perhaps certain, who paint her as a tragic and fascinating figure. Unlike other women in the court who sought strategic marriage as a way to power, Lucrezia's life was marked by political alliances that often placed it in the eye of the hurricane. While others could maneuver with more discretion, their actions, real or invented, they were always under the scandal microscope. Remember the female artists of the Renaissance, many anonymous, others with names that history has rescued with difficulty. They, unlike Lucrezia, had to make their way in a world dominated by men, fighting for recognition in a much more hostile field. Lucrezia, for her position, had access to power, although he would condemn her to a constant trial. But what about Lucrezia today? Centuries later, its history continues to captivate you. It is not just a historical figure. It is an enigma, a character that challenges simple narratives. His name resonates in novels, films, operas. Why? Because it embodies the fascination for the forbidden, by the unleashed power, by the woman who rebels against the conventions of her time. Your interest in her is not accidental. Lucrezia Borgia has become an icon, a figure that transcends the story to become something else. It is a reflection of your own concerns, of your questions about power, morals, and ambition. Its history allows you to explore those complexities without judging it, simply understanding its context. The persistence of his legend lies in his ambiguity. She was a victim, a tool, a complex woman who sailed a brutal world. Was it a ruthless murderer or a puppet in the hands of its ambitious family? That question, without a definitive answer, is the one that feeds the fascination you feel for it. It is a story that invites you to question, to investigate, to form your own opinion. Think of Lucrezia, An empowered woman who navigated the treacherous waters of Renaissance power, or a figure wrapped in a network of intrigues and crimes? The story presents a complex image, full of nuances. She was the daughter of a pope, married to powerful men, and always in the center of political decisions. His intelligence and cunning are undeniable, but how far his ambition came. Many see her as a victim of the patriarchal system, a woman forced to use manipulation and poison to survive in a world dominated by men. Others, on the other hand, indicate it as the architect of their own ills, a ruthless figure who used its beauty and charm to achieve its objectives. The truth, as is usually the case, is probably at some intermediate point. How to judge it, you? With the eyes of modern morals, or with the perspective of the time he lived? In a world where politics was a brutal game, and women had few options, Lucrezia found a way to participate, even through questionable means. Its history invites us to reflect on power, ambition, and the price paid for both. Think of everything we have seen. Lucrezia, a figure wrapped in mystery and controversy. Was it a ruthless manipulator or a victim of circumstances? Its history, full of poison, power, and ambition, leaves us a complex reflection on the role of women in a time as turbulent as the Renaissance. Remember their alliances, their enemies, their achievements, and their failures. She, in the midst of all that chaos, tried to forge her own path. Its legacy is precisely that ambiguity, that layer of mystery that surrounds it until today. You wonder if it was a villain or a heroine. The answer is probably in the very complexity of his time and in the difficulty of judging the actions of someone who lived under rules and pressures so different from ours. There are no easy answers, right? But beyond moral judgment, his figure reminds us of the strength and resilience of women who, despite the limitations of their time, managed to reach positions of power. Lucrezia, with all his shadows and lights, became a symbol, a character who continues to fascinate and inspire debates centuries later. Its history is a mirror that reflects ourselves and the complexity of human nature. I hope you enjoyed the story of Lucrezia Borgia. If you liked it, give like and subscribe for more. What do you think about your legacy? Leave it in the comments. /prosody/speak